Max Verstappen's worst weekend yet. From setup struggles to team drama, and a fierce collision, Red Bull's champion faces one of his toughest challenges this season. Stick around to see how it all unfolded. Max Verstappen's most challenging weekend of the year was set in motion by a mishandled setup change, compounded by a collision with his teammate, Sergio Perez, and an impressive comeback by title contender Lando Norris. Verstappen was far from happy, openly criticizing the car, especially during Saturday's sessions. He likened his Red Bull car to a beast at Monza, but noted that improvements were made to the car's balance in Azerbaijan, although that progress was halted when Red Bull pursued what Verstappen perceived to be the wrong setup direction between the final practice and qualifying. After this, Verstappen became increasingly frustrated, but to his surprise, Horner retaliated, humiliating him and putting him back in line. Verstappen appeared more cautious on Sunday after the race. What transpired on Sunday is likely to frustrate Red Bull further, given the positive signs earlier in the weekend. Alarmingly, Verstappen is now struggling in a way he hasn't experienced before. And as Red Bull management urges him to calm down, the situation risks worsening if there's no swift improvement. For Red Bull, this downward spiral happened quicker than anticipated. McLaren has now surpassed Red Bull in the Constructors' Championship, with a 20-point lead right after Baku. The incident involving Sergio Perez and Carlos Sainz cost Red Bull 15 crucial points. Without that collision, the reigning champion might have avoided some of the growing anxieties. Perez's crash represented half of Red Bull's total points loss. To make matters worse, the newly developed underbody was also damaged. The Milton Keynes team is already feeling the pressure as they continuously roll out new underbody specifications, seemingly out of nowhere. Team principal Christian Horner acknowledged the gravity of the situation. There's a shortage of spare parts. The team will need to spend 5 intense days at the factory to produce enough parts for Singapore by Friday. Still, Horner tried to stay optimistic. Checo had the two frontrunners in his sights up until the end. Despite driving in turbulent air for most of the race, his tires held up well. He was on track for a podium finish until Sainz took him out. A second-place finish was within reach since Leclerc's rear tires were completely worn down. Red Bull viewed Perez's clear progress as proof that the underbody tweaks were making a difference. Red Bull's head of engineering, Pierre Weiche, is hopeful that the Monza incident has shed light on where the underbody is causing instability, throwing the drivers off course. Horner shared an interesting insight into the issue. He explained that the development issues could be traced back to an underbody upgrade introduced at the 2023 Barcelona Grand Prix. That race marked the start of Perez's troubles with the car. Initially, it wasn't taken too seriously because Max still managed to win. Helmut Marko, Red Bull's head of sport, added that things really went wrong at Imola this year. The message coming from Red Bull in Baku was one of hope. However, the team, accustomed to success, is now mentally shaken as they are not used to explaining failures. This is especially the case for the technical department, which some critics are blaming for the struggles, though the absence of Adrian Newey is an exaggeration. The legendary engineer was still present when the RB20 was designed. And Red Bull won 4 out of the first 5 races. Some claim his input on the car's design was minimal, but Marko insists that Newey occasionally assisted with setup issues, as his ability to translate driver feedback into technical terms is unmatched. His presence could have been helpful in Baku. Max Verstappen, far from his usual form, found himself criticized within the team, despite Perez's standout performance. When Verstappen voiced his dissatisfaction with the car on Saturday, it didn't sit well with the team. As a result, Verstappen dialed back his comments after the race. Things escalated to the point where Christian Horner had to personally calm Red Bull's star driver, as some within the team were growing tired of Verstappen's arrogance and hot temper. Verstappen's experience in Baku underlines that Red Bull's problems are far from solved. The RB20 remains a difficult car, tricky to set up with the right balance and optimal tire performance. Verstappen's setup differed slightly from Perez's, but that small difference had a significant impact on track performance. Verstappen's tires degraded much faster in traffic compared to Perez's, which surprised Horner, as this is usually the opposite scenario. Perez had added a minor gurney flap to his rear wing, increasing downforce but reducing top speed by 3 km/h on the final straight. Additionally, Perez was gentler on the rear axle. Verstappen had already complained during qualifying about the car's understeer at the corner apex and its tendency to snap at the rear. This issue couldn't be resolved for the race since changes to key areas of the car were restricted in parc ferme. Verstappen explained how it all unfolded. He was happy with the car on Friday. All the setup changes made at first were headed in the right direction. However, they made one more adjustment before qualifying, which turned out to be one too many. They paid the price for taking that risk. Once the mistake was realized, it was already too late. This should serve as a challenge to those who already crowned McLaren as world champions. As a team, we win and lose together. The title race isn't over yet, Verstappen said after the race, but only after pressure from higher-ups, aimed at calming the storm that's been brewing around Red Bull. But they're behind now, and whether they can catch up again remains to be seen. Red Bull seems to believe it's possible, as team boss Christian Horner has emphasized that the reigning Constructors' champions must now fight back after being overtaken by McLaren. Horner stressed the importance of minimizing damage, saying, "If you look at it from the perspective of Monza, how much have we lost? Only 3 points." However, he acknowledged it's frustrating, particularly considering Lando's qualifying, that we didn't manage to beat him, but at least he didn't score many points. We've learned a lot, and there's still plenty of racing ahead. We took a big hit in the Constructors today, but with 20 points down, we've got to go on the offensive. There are still 7 races to go, including 2 sprint races. There are plenty of points to be earned, and a variety of circuits coming up, so this is far from over. Verstappen's struggle to find harmony with his RB20 was evident when Perez out-qualified him for the first time since the Miami Grand Prix last year. The Mexican put in his best performance of the season, battling with Oscar Piastri and Charles Leclerc. However, when Sainz joined the fight for the lead, following his Ferrari teammates' struggle with rapidly degrading hard tires, teamwork came back to haunt Perez. At turn 1, Leclerc moved to the outside of Perez, leaving him with no space. This allowed Sainz to slip through. But as the two exited turn 3, chasing Leclerc's slipstream, they collided, sending both cars crashing into the wall. It was a huge disappointment because Perez, at the very least, should have finished on the podium, likely in second place, said Horner regarding Perez's performance. "I actually think he could have won the race had it not been for the time lost behind Alex Albon and then Lando Norris, while Oscar Piastri was still out on old tires. Lando held him back, which allowed Oscar to maintain track position. Without that, Perez would have overtaken Oscar, then passed Leclerc, and been in a strong position to win. It was incredibly frustrating." Commenting on the incident, Horner said, "You can clearly see that Carlos, when referencing the wall and the white line on the right side of the track, looks in his mirror and drifts left, knowing Perez was there. Checo doesn't veer either way, so it was an incredibly frustrating situation. What do you think? Was Sainz at fault? More importantly, can Red Bull recover from this setback? Will their upcoming updates be enough to turn things around? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Will Red Bull bounce back after this major setback, or has McLaren taken the lead for good? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more F1 updates.